Yes, welcome everybody. We are back. We are back. We are back. We are the most highbrow people on the internet. I love it. This Monday and every Monday in June 2024, it is I, Frank, joined by a good friend of mine who I'm happy is back on board for another go around in the literary universe. Charlie Robinson. How are you, Charlie?
Very good. Thank you for having me. It's good to be back. I knew I was going to be back because I'm reading this book with you, and it's a perfect summer book.
Oh, perfect summer book. I got my brother a copy. I gave it to him over the weekend. I got my father a copy. I told them both, just promise me you will read it this summer. You don't have to be part of the. I told him. He said, "Well, when do you do the book clubs?" I told him when it was. I said, "You still have time to catch up, but even if you don't, it's all right. You can watch these whenever the hell." That's the best thing about these book clubs. You watch them whenever the hell. So now, as far as this past week, man, go ahead, Charlie. Just give me some general feelings, and we'll go through this with a fine-tooth comb.
I like the idea of old people never being children.
Yeah.
What a wild concept. And as a kid, you just don't have the perspective and you don't have the experience and you haven't seen it with your own eyes. You haven't seen yourself get older, right? So it's conceptual at best, right? But it's not tangible. And when they have the conversation with the lady and they accuse her of never being young, that is such a funny thing to be accused of. And yet at the same time, it kind of made sense. It's like, well, that is a 10, 11, 12-year-old mind, and in a sense that you're old to me now, therefore you've always been old.
Mm-hmm.
so it's just it was funny to me, and that the little girls were so funny about it.
Yes.
Like really like accusatory with this old lady. Anyway, the character development in this book is fantastic. I must say that they paint the picture of these older ladies, and I keep thinking they're going to be like fuddy-duddies, but they've got these really wicked senses of humor, and I kind of like it. And so, and the Colonel's in this, and he's got stories, and it's just great.
It's just. Whenever you sit back and you're thinking about your life, or you're thinking about a time in your life that really had every element in it that became the base programming for who you are. The people, the setting in town, the institutions in town, whether it be, being on the trolley for the last ride it had before the hot tar was poured over the tracks and in came the city buses. That's like me over here in my town, knowing that we can walk into town and there would be certain dining establishments, these little tiny dinettes and, luncheonettes and everything like that are now just laundromats and, it's just bullshit. But these are the people too. That I was thinking about these. There's a lot of women in here. For example, the two women that are essentially. At first, I'm thinking to myself, did they just fall for the first electronic vehicle scam? The first.
I thought first we're having VR.
Yeah.
And now we've got the first electric vehicle in the second part.
The green machine. Did they really fall victim to the first green machine EV scam?
They bought a golf cart before golf carts were cool.
And they killed somebody with it.
They killed an old man with a golf cart.
Well, they thought
it might have been the first time, but it certainly wouldn't have been the last time. I grew up in Palm Springs, California. People got run over by golf carts all the time. So,
dude, I'm telling you, there's a lot that'll come up along the way. Thank you, everybody that's watching. Hello, Jay Jewel. What's going on, Dandy, Gypsy? We're all Winston, ST. Sit back, relax, and let's get this done. Okay, so. We open up with what Charlie was just saying, Mrs. Bentley and the two little girls. Of course, Tom is tagging along, but the two little girls who do not believe that Mrs. Bentley was ever young. And I have to say that at first, Charlie, it infuriated me so much that I cursed twice in my notes that I wrote inside the book. The first time I wrote little bastards over on on page 71 or something. Then on 73, I called them little fucks because I was like, how dare you do this to her? She's an old lady. Leave her alone. How torturous. She's all alone. But then
they provoked something in her they made her reevaluate her life in a sense that night, to
Yeah.
go back and think about it and think about these conversations she had had with her husband who had passed away about 5 years earlier, but right, 4 years. They'd been in the town for 5 years, and that's when he'd passed 4 years earlier, something like that. And she's thinking about these, about how he would tell her, "Why do you keep all these ticket stubs?
Yeah.
It's just like the past, and you're never living in the present if you're always thinking about the past." And here these little girls are, they're challenging that she even had a past. And then it brings up all these thoughts of her husband who would say, like, what good is it? Like, who cares? And she thought, oh God, maybe they're right. Maybe the past is an anchor. It's keeping me from living whatever. I don't know. They kind of forced her into an epiphany. She seemed cool to me though. She bought him ice cream and then they taunted her. I thought that was kind of probably why you got irritated.
Yeah, I was like, who raised you, you little bastards?
I know.
But
bought you ice cream and you're going to tell me I didn't have a childhood? Fuck out of here.
I know. How dare you? Look here, look, and it right there. It's when the remembrances of Mr. Bentley, when she seeks counsel from the memory of her beloved, and I love how stoic he is. The projection of Mr. Bentley is such a wonderful lesson in stoicism, especially in the way that it challenges you, the reader, to surrender your own emotionalism on the issue, because he's right. We don't want Mr. Bentley to be right. We want there to be more to our story, but we want our past to mean something. But the truth is, what we hold on to is really just all about us. It's not about the indifferent truth of the matter. It's I don't know, what is the holding on all about? Like, listen to this. I love this part. Oh, thought Mrs. Bentley, and then, as though an ancient phonograph record had been set hissing under a steel needle, she remembered a conversation she once had with Mr. Bentley. Mr. Bentley, so prim, a pink carnation in his whisk-broomed lapel, saying, "My dear, you never will understand time, will you? You're always trying to be the things you were instead of the person you are tonight. Why do you save those ticket stubs and the theater programs? They'll only hurt you later. Throw them away, my dear." But Mrs. Bentley had stubbornly kept them. "It won't work," Mr. Bentley continued, sipping his tea. "No matter how hard you try to be what you once were, you can only be what you are here and now. Time hypnotizes. When you're 9, you think you'll always be 9 years old, and you'll always and always will be. When you're 30, it seems you've always been balanced there on the bright rim of middle age. And then you turn 70. You're always and forever 70. You're in the present. You're trapped in a young now or an old now, but there's no other now to be seen." And I'm reading that, and my heart is I'm just like going, wow. I'm sinking into the couch cushions, and it kills me, especially personally. I don't know how it is with you, Charlie, but this whole book is challenging my personal sentimentality. I am an extremely sentimental person, if you haven't noticed. And after page 77, the end of this chapter, I was speechless. I had to go for a brief walk around the yard and just, I mean, when she comes back and she realizes, I'm giving all this away. I'm giving all my stuff, the ribbons, the trinkets, the pictures of myself. I'm giving that to these girls. I'm just giving it all away. And then the end. Let's see here. She wants to get rid of things. It doesn't belong to me. Nothing ever belongs to anybody. "We'll help," the girl said. Mrs. Bentley led the procession to the backyard, arms full, a box of matches in her hand. "So the rest of the summer you can see the 2 little girls and Tom, like wrens on a wire, on Mrs. Bentley's front porch, waiting." And then the silvery chimes of the icicle man were heard. Front door opened. Mrs. Bentley floated out with her hand deep down in the gullet of her silver-mouthed purse, and for half an hour you can see them there on the porch, the children and the old lady, putting coldness into warmness, eating chocolate icicles, laughing. At last they were good friends. "How old are you, Mrs. Bentley?" 72. "How old were you 50 years ago?" 72. "You weren't ever young, were you? Never wore ribbons nor dressed like these?" "Nope." "Have you ever got?" I mean, like, the acceptance It must be liberating, but at the same time, it's just incredible.
I was thinking it must be liberating. The giving away of all that stuff is because I'm sentimental. I was the guy who always had the camera at the party, like I had it in my back pocket and would take pictures, had the photo albums and scrapbooks and all that stuff. So I'm somebody that is acutely aware of the past and documenting it and things like that.
Mm.
And I remember moving from place to place and I got tired of lugging a bunch of stuff. I had an entire duffel bag that was filled with photo albums. And I remember making a decision to scan all of them on a scanner, just take the pages out and scan them one by one. And I remember doing all that, it took a while, and then taking all these photo albums and throwing them into a dumpster. And I just thought, oh, like I mean, I have a copy of it obviously in digital format, but to me, it was this symbolic of like, I'm kind of throwing this away. And
I would have had to burn them. I wouldn't want anybody to ever
see it.
handle them. I would never want those
Yeah.
pictures to be rotting in a garbage dump somewhere. I would have had to burn them.
Right.
I hope I don't haunt you with that. I would have had to.
No, I wouldn't have had the option in Las Vegas.
Oh,
They see you
okay.
burning things in Las Vegas at a trash can, and they call the police immediately. So,
that's it. The end of this was incredible, and you were never pretty, never in a million trillion years. No, the two girls would bend toward the old lady and wait in the pressed silence of 4 o'clock on a summer afternoon. Never, said Mrs. Bentley, in a million trillion years. Okay, so there you have it. The old people were never young. Now we have, then we have the time machine. This is great. I mean, it's Colonel Freely. It is, you're wondering, okay, we had the happiness machine. What's the time machine? The importance of having these conversations as a young child with old, sharp people who are giving you remembrances and stories from their travels, from what they've learned for the generations that they've been alive. That is a time machine. It's an incredible way to pull that into the story, to make this man a time machine. And he takes you to some amazing things. His recall is fantastic. He loves telling the stories. And I fear that this is the worst thing that we're losing now and have lost now in the 21st century, that there is very little reverence for the elder statesmen of society. And we don't care about what they know, what they've seen, because everything they came from is old and retrograde and it needs to be done away with. And this was another wonderful chapter. There are no bad chapters, but this one, again, go right ahead, Charlie.
I remember being the same age as these kids and talking to my grandpa during the summer when I would spend these summers in Tennessee. And my grandpa worked at Oak Ridge during World War II at the Tennessee Valley Authority, one of the places where the atomic bomb was being made.
Wow.
And I remember asking him about that and asking him about the stories of that and how that worked and how he felt about it. And expecting him, and mind you, I was young too, but expecting him to be kind of like, rah, 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 we taught those Japs a thing or two. And I remember being surprised that his feeling was we were disgusted. We were disgusted that we had been a part of this. We didn't know we were a part of this. We didn't want to do this. We didn't want to be involved in that. We thought he's like, I'm making the uranium go this direction, but I don't know what they're doing with it after that. I don't know where that goes or who's in charge of that or what it means or what it does. Or I have a 10th grade education. I just work here. I just happen to work at the power plant that they thought was going to be the best fit for making this. And I remember having like a totally different view of World War II after having those conversations with somebody that had been through it from an interesting angle like that. And he wasn't in the military at that time. He was a guy that worked that job, did the thing where you get the watch and you get a pension and you retire and you do, you put in 30 years and go to work every day and do all that stuff. And I remember asking those questions, and I'm really glad now that I did, because I would have probably assumed differently. I probably would have assumed that it was that culture of like, yeah, we got them, back then. But unusual for me to get a response to that I wasn't expecting.
That's that's huge. I wish I had a little bit more time with a little bit more mindset. I definitely had the opportunities. I wasn't thinking of the right questions to ask, and I was just a distracted 17-year-old by the time my grandfather was on the way out and when he died. And it was I wish I was able to have more of that. That's why I spend so much time talking to the elderly today, and have over the last 15 years, 18 years of doing the show that I do. And whenever I have an opportunity to talk to somebody older, it's been great. Just tell me anything. And
I had an hour layover in the Mexico City airport, getting on a plane to Acapulco with G. Edward Griffin next to me. Poor bastard. I talked his ear off. He couldn't get away from me. Talk about an elderly gentleman that you want to ask a million questions. Oh man, I was like,
know.
this guy can't get away from me.
I know.
He's stuck with me.
He's wonderful. Have you met him since?
Not since. No. That was 2019.
Wow.
Yeah, I haven't met him since. I mean, we've had some interactions. We've had him on the group show before, but I mean, not in person. I haven't seen him, and I haven't been to Red Pill ever, which I'd like to go to. I think it's happening this weekend.
He invited me to. They're doing one in South Dakota, right?
Yes.
Wasn't able to get out to that, but he's been on the show several times in the last few years. I'm trying to bring him back again. It's just, he's taking it easy these days. He's in his 90s now, but still, brother Noomsy in the chat room says, I did a documentary with old WW2 vets, had hours of footage, only so much made it to air, but it was amazing to watch it all. That's all that matters, that the conversations are on tape. It's all that matters. Doesn't matter what's been edited. It's great that it's just been there. I love Colonel Freely's recalling of being there for the Buffalo Stampede and things like that. I mean that's just incredible.
Well, how about the Ching Ling So bullet story?
I know.
The guy on the stage, the first guy to blow that trick, I guess. I don't know.
Absolutely. Just done. Bullet catch, done. Let's see here. What else do I have? So the Happiness Machine, we did that. Here's another one. The Green Machine. Now, I don't know whether this is Miss Fern and Miss Roberta. What do you think about this chapter? It opens up with them both thinking that they had killed Mr. Quartermain with their green machine, which we find out was like the world's first EV scam. But I don't know. It seems like it was like a golf cart. It did work, and but they eventually did not. They didn't kill Mr. Quartermain, but they are a goofy couple of ladies, and it reminds me of when my father would drive me and my brother to elementary school in the morning. We would drive down this boulevard in town, and in the morning, everybody, all the morning walkers and joggers would go around this boulevard, and there'd be these two old ladies that would walk together, and they both had this almost like scowling face, but they were probably nice, but they just had very determined faces on when they were walking. We would call them the Mad Madams, and for some reason, Miss Fern and Miss Roberta, the first thing I thought about was Mad Madams and their electric vehicle. So there you have it.
I wanted to recognize the fact that there was somebody who apparently is like a door-to-door electric vehicle salesman back in 1928. That talk about a tough job. Holy moly. You don't just have to sell the product. You have to paint the picture that there's even a need for the entire industry. The whole thing sounded crazy to me.
Even down to the garage charging port. I'm like, this is Tesla.
Yes. This book might be a time machine.
It's nuts. It really is nuts. And then after that, we have the last ride on the trolley in town. That was a bittersweet chapter. Great scene of the boys having lunch on that old stretch of tracks before it's all covered over for the new fleet of buses. And then everyone,
What about that as a concept? Paving the road over those metal tracks that used to be there. I mean, a symbolic gesture too.
Yeah.
Changing of the guard. I mean, this was the introduction of school buses as a new concept too to the kids. The idea that they said, well, now we'll never be allowed to be late. You know, I mean, they saw the scam immediately, right? Now we're stuck. Now
Yeah.
we control our comings and goings too. So they've got us for even longer. But as a concept that the trolley goes away, and they liked that the automatic step came down. They thought that was cool, and they liked that you could just kind of get in and out of it. And they liked that it was tangerine colored because that was certainly something special. And I don't know about these buses. I mean, these buses are coming, but I've been on a bus in Chicago and it smelled. You know, I mean, that was sort of how they described it.
Right.
And it's going to be a school bus, and, you know, it's going to take us to school. So they're a bit suspicious about this whole thing. But just the paving over, you know what I mean? The just, it's almost like that didn't, once you pave over it, it just doesn't exist anymore. I mean, it does in your mind for a while, and then it goes away. And before long, you forget that it was ever there. And such is life, right?
Yeah, it is. And then you kind of just see the remnants of those little things throughout one town or another. And it's sad. It's sad because it's more than just the time. It's the smell of the steel blue wheels and the sounds, and it's just, I don't know. And of course the relationship with the conductor. It's a lot. It's a lot. You never know who's who bought the red car, from Roger
exactly.
Rabbit.
And this driver, he says, well, I'm retiring and they're giving me a pension and everything, but they're discontinuing your industry. You're at an economic cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
It's sort of a dinosaur. And that's, I guess it's just kind of goes to show this is progress, right? This is the evolution of things. And you don't want to be in the trolley business when the buses are coming out. I'll tell you that much.
You don't. I know. Thankfully, it took a long time for the electronic vehicles to catch on, and now even
it took 100 years.
But even they're hitting a wall now. It's just like with the Never Meat or whatever the hell it is.
Impossible Meat.
Impossible Meat. So that's the last ride in town. It's a bittersweet but a beautifully written chapter, and then we have the John Huff chapter. And Charlie, everyone has a John Huff chapter in their life. Friends moving away, moving on, growing up, John fearing that he's going to forget everyone, be forgotten, taking special care to slow the day down, hoping it'll last longer. That final game of tag was excruciating for me. Where, it's like it's pointless, but Doug is just like, stay here for 3 hours and don't move. You can't go. And he's just like, Doug, I have to leave. And he just kind of lets his arms down and he's like, how about I play tag? I'm it. Okay, freeze. And then he just disappears, and that's it. The final game of tag was excruciating for me to read. It reminded me of asking my mom for like 5 more minutes when I was at a friend's house when I was younger, or even an hour, thinking that was some sort of significant span of time. We got 5 more minutes. Come on. It's like you do nothing in 5 minutes, but you just, but then the pledge, that I think the follow-up to that one, the short chapter afterwards, the pledge between Doug and his brother Tom.
Yeah.
To not leave each other is another very special thing right there. When you have a sibling, sure, you want to go off and make your own friends and you want to have your own time with them and whatever. But when those friends are unavailable, or if and when they eventually go their separate ways, or they're pulled off for one reason or another, it's an incredibly safe, reassuring feeling to know you have a brother or a sibling that's not going to bail. And those little reassurances with each other, just to be able to comfort through change. And this is such a big summer of change. Like, for Doug, the summer of his 11th year was probably paradise, because he was doing all this stuff without the looming prospect of change. Kids weren't moving away. The trolley seemed like it was always going to be there. Grandparents were older, but they seemed like they were going to be sticking around for a while. It's a huge, just in 1 year, it all hits you. You realize, oh my God, it's not going to stay the same. And that was really comforting to see Doug and Tom have that moment.
Yeah. And you're right. Everyone's got a John Huff in their life who is great at everything and had to move away to Milwaukee. It's only 80 miles away. We'll stay in touch. No, we're not. Let's be honest. No, we're not. Not
Yeah,
really.
I know.
Not in a meaningful, real way, we will. And how he tried to convince himself that he hated him instead. Probably because it's
Oh yeah.
easier, to be mad at him. I hate him. I hate him. That's where he's going away. But he didn't hate him. He just hated that he was leaving. And it probably felt easier to be mad at him than it was to be sad about the situation. And then that led into that real short chapter that we just talked about, how it's starting to hit him that things don't always stay this predictable way. We're having changes in all kinds of ways. Not the least of which is happening with this Elmyra Brown character.
Can I just say right off the bat, tip of the cap to Bradbury for following up the heaviness of the John Huff change and loss and moving on, shedding the skin of childhood with, like, the loss of a friendship like that. Hats off to him of following up the heaviness of the John Huff chapter with the ridiculousness of the Sam and Elmyra Brown witchcraft chapter. Because Sam and Elmyra are, let's just be honest, dumb people. Sam is just a nosy, bad mailman, and his wife is an insane busybody who goes to war with a local woman's committee leader. Oh, go, tell me what you think.
I have my notes. The original Karen.
That's it.
I mean, she's out of her mind. You know what I mean? And it, and I started in my mind, I'm thinking of all of these, what she looks like, and she's kind of, I don't know, I'm picturing her, but it is such a, like I said, the character development is pretty great in here. He's got these very unusual female characters. The Elmyra Brown is one, but her nemesis in this, Clara Goodwater.
Was she a witch, or was she just was she a witch, or was she just a really good troll and smart?
I think she was a troll. I mean, okay. I think so. I think she was just screwing with her, and if she's screwing with her, then it's just. I have maybe a faulty perception, but I have a perception of the olden days like this being not really funny. And if this actually were to happen, this is hysterical. The way she sort of built it all up and was like, just kept messing with her a little bit more. Oh yeah, I got all these voodoo books, all those witchcraft books coming, and really started to mess with her head. And yeah, she was the original troll. But again, this lady had it coming to her. She was totally out of her mind.
I know.
Show up at her house, and I didn't understand, and I don't think you're supposed to understand when the scene starts and she cuts her finger, and then she asks, "Where have you been?" and he mentions that he's been delivering mail to this house, and that sets her off. And you're thinking, this is really weird. Why is this setting her off? And then you find out it's because she's cut herself 12 times this year, and she's had the intestinal issues 4 times, and she's fallen down the stairs 6 times, and all these things. And you're just like, what is going on here?
And I love that, what's her name, that Mrs. Goodwater just calls her clumsy. So,
yeah, right.
Like, listen, you're clumsy. That's not my fault. And it just, that's the whole thing. What was it? She bought an ancient Egyptian mystery school book or something that her son was interested in, and I don't know. They start wondering was she a witch?
It wasn't even her son. It was like her nephew or something. And she bought this book, and the postman also made me sort of think a little bit. I got kind of sidetracked for a moment when I was reading the book. I was like, this postman has a lot of information about the people in the city, right? You know what I mean? Like
He's
he's
nosy.
delivering all these books, and he knows what book this lady ordered because he tells her his wife. And then I started to think for a second, like back then, I bet if you were the mailman, you were way connected. You were like the town next door app. You know what I mean? Like you knew what everybody she jokingly calls him I forget what the name was, but it translates to like a handwriting expert when she introduces the wife later on in the scene and calls her husband a handwriting expert because he's the postman. And it is kind of funny because I guess in a sense he really is kind of able to analyze the writings of all these people because he sees all the things that come and go. And at a time before, I'm sure the postmen now are overwhelmed with Amazon and you can't really tell what was coming. But I would imagine that back then it was a little bit more transparent for the person that was in charge of delivering the letters and the packages and things like that. And maybe they had a little bit more information that
Yeah.
they needed to keep secret than they didn't. Anyway, it
Especially
just
the
kind of
post.
occurred to me that was a thing.
Absolutely. I mean, there's probably a lot less reason to actually put things like books inside of bags and wrapped brown paper or packaging, whatever. Sometimes it probably just showed up pretty naked with a little bit of, up until a point. I don't know when the hell this stopped, but I don't know when the hell this began. But there was a point up until I think 1920. I think prior to 1920, it was possible that you could actually send your children through the U.S. Postal Service. Did you know that?
It sounds crazy, but it also sounds like something I've heard as an actual thing before.
I think here. You know what? I had some notes on this for I want to do a weird facts night on, quite frankly. Listen to this. I had this ready to go. Well, I didn't have it ready to go. I had it on my desktop. Prior to 1920, it was possible to send children through the U.S. Postal Service. However, there were certain conditions that needed to be met. Firstly, the children had to weigh less than 50 pounds, and stamps were attached to their clothing as form of payment. Surprisingly, it was often more cost-effective for individuals to send their children via mail rather than opting for train transportation. Interestingly, during the journey, the children would travel on the train, specifically in the mail car, where they were supervised and provided with nourishment by mail clerks. One remarkable example of this unconventional practice involved a distance of over 700 miles from Florida to Virginia, covered with a mere 15 cents worth of stamps. That's a steal even back then.
That's that's human trafficking, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. It's very, very makes me feel very uncomfortable. The idea of like, I'm going to send you a package with this child.
I know you think about it. You think about getting nosy. I mean, obviously, I send a lot of postcards. Even today, it's part of like one of my Patreon tiers. So I know every time I put that monthly stack of postcards in the mail, I know somebody's reading it. That's why sometimes I write ridiculous shit on there. So somebody like Mr. Brown over here, Sam Brown.
Sam Brown, the postman.
I was trying to look for what she had called him as far as whatever. But here's how this whole thing ends, which is I think is just so wonderful, because we needed this chaos after the John Huff chapter. Elmyra essentially turns herself into a witch, because in the process of hating on Mrs. What's her name? Goodwater, in the process of hating on her and wanting to go and confront her at this local women's club meeting, Elmyra brings with her to this meeting a homemade white magic potion that she concocted herself. And it ends up, it's so rancid. It has so many different types of thing in there. It ends up, this whole scene, with her getting so sick that she runs out of the room, falls down a flight of steps, and throws up while she's tumbling down the stairs.
Yes.
It's the perfect amount of chaos I needed at that point.
It was perfect. I kept thinking if they made the movie out of this, people would definitely want to see how that scene was written in the book.
Well,
because it just paints this picture of her. Like,
dude, I was thinking about that part being akin to the pie eating contest in Stand By Me.
Barfarama.
Stand By
Yeah,
Me.
exactly.
You know that, or the Sandlot when they all have the Big Chief chewing tobacco on the spinning machine. They all throw up. Something
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
just a small little bit of ridiculousness stuffed inside this beautiful story.
Yep.
Yeah, it was in my mind, this lady looks like Helen Bonham Carter, with like the crazy hair, and she's just out of her gourd up there,
Yep.
swigging potion and lecturing the everyone at the Honeysuckle Lodge, promising to, like taking the vote, making a complete ass of herself. I mean, it's like a total nightmare
Yeah.
scenario happening. It's like the worst of everything. It's giving a bad public speech. It's falling down in public. It's throwing up in public all over yourself. I mean, the whole thing was like a catastrophe.
And the best thing is that the way that they described that she had fallen down the stairs and was able to really go walk away from it relatively unscathed, aside from being a little bit black and blue and sore, is the fact that she had pretty much lost consciousness and just like bounced like rubber the whole.
Right. It reminded me of like when the drunk drivers get in the car accidents and they live because they're so drunk that they're like kind of like limber.
Yeah.
That description of her just being out of it before she even went down, there was a visual in my mind of it just being hilarious. Like a good director could have some fun with that scene for sure. Get you a pie eating barfarama.
Well, let's see.
Memorable scene like that out of it for sure.
I would love to see this. You know what? I would love to see this turned into a movie or at least a stage play or something. It's worthy of it. It's just I don't know. It's good for the soul. It's a good exercise, especially when it gets you emotional, because man, after you have yourself a little bit of a moment where you have to collect yourself and breathe through it all, you kind of feel like, oh wow, that's a muscle that hasn't been exercised in a while. It feels good.
I thought of something that, given where we are in the current state of the world with very uneasy World War III sort of on the horizons. I thought it was interesting when there's a part in there where he says, "War's never a winning thing, Charlie. You just lose all the time.
Mhm.
And the one who loses last asks for terms."
That's it.
And I read that and I thought that should be, like a reminder to the people that are so enthusiastic about war these days. We got to get them, and we got to stand with Ukraine. We got to get those bastards in the Middle East, or we got to make sure it's like, you be very, very, very careful about volunteering people into fight in wars. Like, you forget how awful it is. And he was telling Colonel Freely, and this is talking about his experiences. They asked him about the Civil War battles. Were you in that? Yeah, were you in that? Which way did you march? Which direction was the sun coming up? He said, well, sometimes it was coming up over my left shoulder, and sometimes it was coming up over my right shoulder. I mean, we were marching all over the place in every direction. And in the end, we just wanted to go home. So who won the war? I'm alive. You know what I mean? And it's like, that is how things will be measured after World War III. Who won the war? I did. I'm alive. If you're able to say that, right?
Yeah. Ah, man, that's really well said. I'm glad you brought that up, because that was the other thing, the remembrance of the Civil War and how really neutral he was on the whole thing. He wasn't going to tell you who the good guys and the bad guys were. He was just going to tell you that, hey, you know what? I'm a guy from New York that. What was it? New York to Tennessee. New York. They grew up in Tennessee.
Yeah.
There's a little
there
bit.
Were all these different states none of them were in the deep South, and none of them were up in the real Northeast too much. I mean, a little New York, but it was all sort of around that border town. He's like, I was from there and worked there and had family there and lived there. And you start to think, yeah, I bet a lot of people were in that situation. Who's the enemy? Well, I mean, it's easy if the enemy looks completely different from you and wears a different uniform. But if the enemy is a city that you used to live in before your dad got job transferred to Milwaukee or someplace, you know what I mean? And now all of a sudden that's the enemy. Like that was a reality for, people in the Civil War that used to live in the South and then moved to the North. And then what, the South's supposed to be the enemy? Well, what if we're, Tim Pool's talking about Civil War a lot and it's turned into almost like kind of like a tongue in cheek kind of joke, but like Civil War, again, very easy to throw that term around, but like when you hear Colonel Freely talk about the Civil War, sort of a reminder, and this was a guy that was, real young, but in it. They asked him about this battle. Yeah. This battle. Yeah. You were in Bull Run. Yeah. Like, I hope we don't have stories in the future of like, you were in the Battle of the Bronx or whatever. You know what I mean? You were in the Battle of Atlanta versus
something, whatever,
versus Florida. I mean, I don't know. Just like the idea that we have some sort of crazy future Civil War. It's not something we should allow ourselves to be easily walked into.
It's wantonly dangled in front of us, as
I would say pushed even in some regards. I mean, the fact that it keeps getting algorithmically sort of pushed to the front or maybe suggested to you, it's like, who wants us to want Civil War?
Yeah.
Because I don't want it. I get it. There's a lot of people I'm having a hard time thinking I can live with, but that's a much different thing. And we're so far away from this actual 1865 Civil War that we think that was like a million years ago.
Yeah. Oh,
but this guy makes it real. This guy was in it, right?
But again, to what we were saying before, that's why. Hey, I'm going to show you the time machine. And, Douglas goes along for the ride, and suddenly they go into this house, and all of a sudden, here's this man on a rocking chair. What do you mean? And Douglas, a couple of times, is just like, but what about and they cut him off. He's about to ask, but where's the time machine? And they're trying to say, this is the time machine. We're gonna go to the war. We're gonna go to New York City. We're gonna go to all these things that we're gonna be, riding in. We're gonna feel the dust of this gigantic bison stampede kick up under our noses for a little bit. We're going to those places. This guy is our link to the past. He's a physical link to the past. And that's what I was saying before, is that we're losing that perspective because we're being encouraged to sever those connections that we had with our families, with the elder statesmen of the community. We're not taking care anymore. We're handing off our family members and people to the state to be taken care of after a certain age, because there's so much that we have let go of, and that's why it's so easy for people to float Civil War out there. And it's a little bit harder for us to conceive of what that would even look like in the 21st century, because it's not going to be, hey, it's the blue versus the gray. Everybody below the Mason-Dixon line is the enemy. It's not even, like, that's ridiculous, and that's why I think the time machine is a wonderful chapter in this. And I want to because I know we got 8 minutes until the top of the hour. I don't want to keep you more than 5 minutes past because I started late again tonight, and I'll stay on a little bit later just to read through a couple of these forum posts, but there's not that many, so let's just get to them. Here we go. And also, let me just say before we get to that, our reading for next week, we stopped at 128. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take page 129, and we're going to go to the end of 184. It's about 60 pages. That means that the last week that we have together is going to be like a 40-page read. This was, so 184. Here we go. Vesper is the first one up. Vesper says, Helen Bentley needed something that she didn't even know she needed until she found Alice, Jane, and Tom lying on her lawn. She needed to grow up in order to recapture youth. Through her innocence, naivete, and lack of inhibition, the children unknowingly taught Helen to let go of the past. They reminded her that if she was true, she truly once was a child. Surely she would remember that she was born a child and that old people were born old. Let's see here. In taking her trinkets, and the children taught her that things are only for children to covet until a certain age, that they too will realize that none of those things can be taken with them when they go. They unwittingly revealed to her that it's fruitless to impart certain realities to children, that children can only learn for themselves in their own time. Alice, Jane, and Tom had in Helen Bentley a friend who offered baubles, playthings, and a porch on which to eat gifts of ice cream. Helen Bentley had in the children friends who offered lessons and wisdom from the mouths of babes. That's wonderful.
That's really fantastic.
And listen, after I read this from Vesper, because I saw this entry earlier on in the day, I had already calmed down with the children and what I thought was heartless taunting, where I called them bastards and fucks. I called them, but after I read Vesper, I was just like, oh, you're right. Oh, that's wonderful. All right, let's see here. Oh, Cowgirl says, I was disappointed she gave up her childhood. She didn't need to keep the things of childhood, definitely the memories. I don't understand this. Yeah, the memories are good. I mean, but maybe, Cowgirl, it's not about giving up the memories. It's, like I said before, when you're thinking about Mr. Bentley, what does he represent in that situation? It is the classically stoic approach. Those things don't go away, but the hold that they have on you do. And if you are able to dissipate the emotion to them, you're free from feeling, the cloudiness of loss and everything else, and to be attached to it. I think that's the big thing. You don't give up memories; they're always there. But maybe it is something that we should all try to be a little bit less emotionally invested in them. I don't know. What do you think? He says
two things to her. Mr. Bentley says two things to her. He says, time hypnotizes. Right. So he's explaining that it, well, look, that's something that the kids are going to have to learn on their own. And you learn this by experience, trying to explain to somebody how valuable time is when you're 10 years old. It's not the same as when you're 90, right? I mean, just everything has a different value based on the perspective. So it's kind of impossible to impart this wisdom on these 10-year-old kids. And I think she figures that out. And I think they do a lot for her. I think that she probably really looks forward to having those ice cream dates with the kids out on the patio for 30 minutes or so, chatting with them. Probably makes her feel, ironically, young again.
Yeah, but without pretense. I think that's just it. That there's that because she was able to let go a little bit and loosen up. There's that old saying I love so much: you don't have to give up to let go. And because she was able to do that, sitting on that porch could be a little bit more freeing. It could be a little bit more rejuvenating. And she's talking to future old people.
She could have taken that a totally different direction if she wanted to.
Yeah, she could have been
and
me.
She chose to. It kept her up that night. And she just kind of, what would my husband say about this situation? Tell me to get a grip.
I know.
Get a grip.
Made me wonder why I got so emotional about it. And I said, this is not right. I said, that's why every once in a while, those reminders, man, because the next day, a lot of people today, I'm not one to hold a grudge, but I definitely am one to stew on something. So maybe the next day, if I saw the kids on the front lawn, maybe the first day I'd be like, yeah, get off, get out, Get off the lawn, please. You know, but after a while, it'd be like, what am I doing? They're kids. What the
But
hell what am I doing?
they say in there as well, they can't imagine a change they can't see. Talking about the gradual progression of their parents getting older. Your parents are getting older. Yeah, but I live with my parents. I can't tell because it's so incremental
Yeah.
that it doesn't seem like it does. And they make the comparison, not like somebody that goes away for a trip or, moves away and then comes back and then sees, oh my God, you look so different. So,
Well, yeah, that time hypnotizes. Subvet says, I thoroughly enjoyed and laughed out loud during 2 chapters. The first was the green machine hit and run. I could see the 2 older women.
Totally. Thelma and Louise of 1928.
I could see the 2 older women peeking out of the attic window like 2 children that broke a window with a batted ball. The second one was Elmyra Brown. I can see and her husband, the nosy neighbors, as a righteous Clara stormed out of her house, Tom in tow, tripping over the dog laying on the lawn, and finally going out the wrong door and falling down the stairs, blaming Clara Goodwater for her own foibles and clumsiness. In the other words, she was not responsible, but a victim. Meanwhile, Clara Goodwater kept pulling her chain. The words in both chapters flowed nicely in a way that I could clearly visualize both situations. To me, these were the most delightful chapters about human behavior in the book thus far. Jalen Wennings said, I found this session very comical. Mrs. Bentley's conversations with the children had me chuckling. The boys' trip to the time machine was very humorous. I found myself laughing at the fact that the colonel was old. He'd forgotten which side he fought on during the Civil War. I don't know if now, Jalen, I don't know. Well, let me finish this. And we just mutter random things. All the irony of the electric trolley being phased out by the buses. Jalen, the only thing there is, and maybe it is up to interpretation. You just don't know. He is a very old guy. Seems like he might be one of the older ones in the town. But I think that maybe that was just wisdom. I think that was just wisdom he was imparting about, which side where you want. Charlie got deep into that before there too, about just the nature of war. I think that's something that you take away after the fact and just realize that there was no winners in war, regardless of what is taught to children after the fact, generations later. That's there to use to whip votes and to reference heroes of the past for political reasons in the future. But if you're a person who was out there doing the killing and getting shot at for so many years and seeing so many young lives snuffed out when they could have been back on their farms doing their thing. Yeah, I don't know. That might have just been wisdom right there.
I don't think he forgot it. I think he knew it all too well, which was the reason why he didn't forget which side he was fighting on. I think the point he was trying to make to these kids was, what difference does it make? There's no winning side. There's no, the North won, therefore everything's fine. No, it's like, it's war. If you're alive at the end of it, then you're the person that gets to make the terms, and then that's a victory, I suppose. But
yeah,
it's
absolutely
that's the perspective you get when you've been in it, right? You talk to those people. You talk to people over the years, right, that have come back from wars. Do you find many of them that are enthusiastic about more wars, or do you find them usually sort of like, we need to find a different way? This isn't the...
No, the assessment is always, if it's not complete, and you know why? Because especially veterans of the most contemporary conflicts, almost all of them that I've spoken to have become jaded with why they were out there. So not only is war, our most combat veterans staunchly of the opinion that war should be the very, very last thing that you consider in trying to settle a conflict. I think the more contemporary the combat veteran you talk to would say they are even more staunch in that hesitancy, because many of them have questions as to why they were deployed. That's just what I have picked up as a civilian through and through, who is really only in the business of of conversing with people. That's what I picked up, and that is a very strong thread. And so yeah, here's from John Carroll. We're almost done. He says, we're starting to see the evolution of what the happiness machine is likely to become. After the physical machine burned down, Leo looks at his family enjoying themselves in the house and realizes they are the real happiness machine. That brings us to Colonel Freely, who was hyped up as a time machine, but no physical machine was ever built. The ceremonies, rituals, and firsts of the summer of 1928 that Doug bottles up are like parts being assembled in another time machine, himself. Future generations will visit Doug or read his book and be transported back to the last trolley ride in Greentown. Wonderful. Gal 2021 says, I saw a couple of themes running through this section of our reading. Quote, there is nothing new under the sun came to mind with the green machine electric charger in the carport and garage.
Me too.
Just like the couple of Teslas in our neighborhood with their own electric charging stations in the garages.
Just like the Karen next door who's coming over to your house to scream at you about something, or the postman is, I mean, like all these like concepts, they're 100 years old. These people have been doing this for forever. It's I found myself thinking the exact same thing.
And the other theme I saw running through a couple of the vignettes is the theme of the passing of an era and the lessons that come with that recognition. John Huff's sudden departure was a painfully sad chapter to read. Doug struggled mightily not to cry. Our own sons had to say many of these kinds of goodbyes because my husband's career came with lots of moves early on. Change comes unwanted and unexpected sometimes. Bradbury expresses it so well in the John Huff chapter. Here's a quote, it was a day as perfect as the flame of a candle. Douglas walked through it thinking it would go on this way forever. End quote. The human experience. Bradbury uses his characters to make so many profound statements. Colonel Freely, war's never winning thing, Charlie, you just lose all the time, and the one who loses the last asks for terms. Mr. Bentley, my dear, you'll never understand time, will you? You're always trying to be the things you were instead of the person you are tonight. From laughing to nearly crying, Bradbury is giving us one kind of a ride. And I have a couple of more here, Charlie, that I'd like to read. But I know that you got some stuff. If you have to go, you can go. And
I'll stay. Go for it.
Okay. Let's see here. Just a couple more. Slash Doom says, any evidence you can type that last sentence or even the few words of the last sentence of the end chapter. I've got a green cover paperback that doesn't seem quite match up with either of the page numbers. Somebody gave it to them. Okay. So that's there you go. I know some of the paperbacks and the hardcovers, they're on different page. The problem here is that Bradbury doesn't give us chapter numbers, which I hate when people do that. Give us chapter numbers. I know that they're small chapters, but to hell with it. It's just, it's good for book clubs. Okay, Mark G. says, there were many crazy stories in this chapter, especially for such a small town. The story of Elmyra Brown had me laughing. What great dialogue. I wish real witches were as funny as the fake witch, Clara Goodwater. The chapter about John Huff moving was the one that hit home for most. I had two best friends move away in my childhood, and it sucked both times. I don't think I ever went through anger the way Douglas did at the end. I do remember feeling like a truck hit me when I first found out, though. Bradbury had a great way of describing the theory of slowing down time by doing nothing. We've all been there before and trying to savor any moments that we don't want to end. And Cowgirl says, in the chapter about John Huff leaving, the section captured me. For John was running, and that was terrible because if you run, time ran. Oh, it made me think of how fast a busy day is and how long a slow day seems. Douglas wanted he and John to do nothing particular that day so it would last longer. Gypsy Princess says, I was frustrated by Mrs. Bentley in the kids chapter. I can see that Mrs. Bentley needed to let go of some things and live in the present, but I felt like Alice and Jane were a little jerks to her. Hey, I was with you. I didn't think she needed to go completely cave into the tyranny of the ignorant, agreeing with them that she was never young, always 72, never pretty, etc. That ending left me unsatisfied. I wanted to see the girls put in their place a little bit. They were so mean, but perhaps this says something about my own need for growth. Hey, listen, that's exactly what I was saying. I was like, why? Because when she was thinking about Mr. Bentley, he started talking to me. He's like, Frank, you're too sentimental, and it makes for wonderful radio sometimes, and it makes for very magical, Christmases that you're building for your daughter, but it's crippling you elsewhere. That's what I'm telling you. I feel like my sentimentality has been challenged throughout this entire book numerous times already. So
when it came to the girls challenging Mrs. Bentley, and Mrs. Bentley ultimately sitting on the porch and sort of saying she's always been old, she's never been pretty, she's always been this, she's always been that. I didn't take that as she was going to act that way in the public with everybody.
Mhm.
I took that as that was their little game they were playing on the porches with the ice cream when they all got together. She'd play that character of I've always been 72 if you want. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I didn't take that as like necessarily like a breaking down
She
of this
surrendered.
lady or anything like that.
Right.
I took it more of she had a bit of an epiphany that night and then decided, you know what? I'm 72. I've always been 72. You know what I mean? And the kids go, cool. All right, let's talk. You know what I mean? And then it's sort of, that's their thing. And so I must say the little girls, they did, I mean, especially by 1928 standards, they were extra shitty for back then.
I know. You think that they'd be better raised, but this goes into what you just said.
Wrong.
What you just said there goes into, I think, answering a significant portion of this final entry here by Cowgirl, who says, "Why were Colonel's memories valid and Mrs. Bentley's not? He was a time machine, and she had to give up her past. Interesting comparison." Well, like Charlie just said, she wasn't surrendering her past. She was being challenged on the emotional connection to the identity of having been a girl and pretty and all that stuff. There is an interesting comparison there too. But I don't know, the Colonel, what's different about the Colonel and Mrs. Bentley? I mean, there was a lot of physical memorabilia and things and almost like mementos and stuff that were associated with Mrs. Bentley's past. Like, Mr. Bentley saying, "Why are you keeping the ticket stubs and the programs? It's only going to hurt you." Whereas the Colonel is sitting in his solitude with really just, his stories where
all his ticket stubs were in his head. That was the only way they could get to those, was to just sit him down and ask him questions about it.
But also
they wanted to live in his past.
Exactly. See, that's what I'm talking. Well, that's what I'm talking about. It's the approach from the children that's different as well.
Yeah. They had a real interest in what he did when he was young.
The boys,
but the little
those
girls
boys
had
are
no interest in knowing what Mrs. Bentley was like when she was young. In fact, they didn't even think she had ever been young. It's a very interesting dichotomy there too, because they treat these old people very differently.
It's also a difference in the groups of children in age too. Remember, Tom is not quite getting what Doug is seeing at this point, right, at 12 years old. So Doug and his friends are already at that space in their lives where now they're getting interested in things. They're contemplating the passage of time. They see Colonel Freely as a link to a past, and they just want to tell us about that. They want the stories. The interaction between Mrs. Bentley and the little girls were, I don't know, it was built on a completely different premise. I'm sure if Mrs. Bentley, if the boys took interest in Mrs. Bentley that day instead of the girls, Mrs. Bentley would still have all of her tchotchkes around. It was just that was Mrs. Bentley's moment to take something very deliberate away from, I don't know, maybe a lesson that her husband was always trying to teach her. But I think that's the difference between the interaction. It's everybody and the settings in both things. And
he's such a great writer.
Yeah, I know. It's just beautiful. It's beautiful writing. I remember, like what I was saying with W.P. Kinsella. when we were doing Shoeless Joe. I mean, we would stop to admire the way that he would paint a dusky night sky in Iowa all the time, and I feel like it's just the whole book. I can't you
You've got to visualize it.
Yeah.
And like when you, I've never written fiction before, so I see something like this, and it's like mad. It's like a, I don't know. It's like something I don't know that I would ever want to tackle.
I'm
I have such
sure.
an appreciation for the people that can do it really well. I had a really interesting. I went to a boarding school for high school. And my junior year, my English class was Hemingway. That's what it was just Hemingway. And we had it in a stone hut, like a house that had been built in like 1906. And they called it the stone hut because it looked like a stone hut. And on days when it was sunny and nice, the teacher would let us take our desks out into the front of it, where it was like covered with like trees and grass, and we would sit out there and have conversations about Ernest Hemingway. So I really appreciate you inviting me into the book club the last 2 years, because I lost that connection, I think, over the years to books that I had, which is weird being a writer. You'd think that you'd be into. I don't get to read as many of the books as I would like to, but this has made me read fiction, and I really appreciate it, and I really am digging it.
Well, I'm glad you're taking
I'm excited for next week.
Oh, I am too. And then we'll figure out something else to read next year. Maybe we'll read Farewell to Arms. That's what this is in here.
Yeah.
This is
God.
Look,
Hemingway stuff is so good.
Right on the inside of my my left arm. This is the first edition cover of Farewell to Arms right here.
Oh.
You see that? That right there.
If people bring so much courage into this world, the world has to kill them to break them. So the world breaks them. It breaks everybody. And in the end, some are stronger in the broken places.
In the broken places. I love that. And you know, some people don't like how terse he is with his writing. And it don't
give a shit. He was a drunken lunatic.
It was just great. It was I loved it. Or you know, we can read I mean those are long books there too, but we can also just read like The Old Man and the Sea. Yeah, that's something.
I mean, these are books that so yes.
All right. Well, listen, that's it for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Session 3
Good night, Franklies.
Good night, everybody. Everything you need to know about Charlie Robinson is in the link below in this episode, and of course, this is going to be here for all time. So, if you're listening to this tomorrow, 2 months from now, or 25 years from now, go check out Charlie Robinson, because I'm sure he's still working. All right, guys and gals, thanks for everything, and we will see you next week. Take care.